Okay, let's dive right into this. We're about to uncover a really fascinating story of economic warfare and proxy power, one that was hidden in plain sight right on the southern border of the Roman Empire. Now, this isn't just a story of a few raids. We're talking about a super sophisticated, century-long operation.
And yeah, that brings us to the big, provocative question we're tackling today. While Constantinople thought it was collecting all these taxes from its southern provinces, was the wealth of the Nile actually being siphoned off by the rising Ethiopian power of Aksum? Were they literally bleeding the Romans out?
So picture this. You've got Upper Egypt, a region called the Thebaid. On every single official map back in the Byzantine court, this is Roman territory, period. But the reality on the ground? Oh, that was something else entirely. The gold, the grain, all that tax revenue, it wasn't heading north to the emperor. Nope, it was flowing south, right into the treasury of a rival empire.
There's actually a name for this strategy: the Aksumite Northern Creep. See, after the Aksumites conquered their rivals to the south, the Kushites around 350 CE, they had a bit of a problem. They wanted all that Nile wealth, for sure, but they really didn't want the hassle or the serious risk of directly occupying those notoriously malarial lowlands. So, they came up with this brilliant, kind of hands-off approach to building an empire.
Aksum was just flush with cash from its recent conquests. It got this massive gold boost. But since direct occupation was off the table, they had a huge question to answer. How do you control and tax a territory without ever planting your flag? I mean, how did they actually pull this off, right under the Romans' noses?
Well, the answer comes down to a group called the Blemmies. You got to think of them as Aksum's secret weapon. These nomadic masters of the eastern desert, they became the hardware for Aksum's whole plan, acting as proxy tax collectors operating deep inside Roman territory.
And the model they used was, well, it was simple, but absolutely brilliant. Step 1, the Aksum-backed Blemmies just move in and occupy key Roman cities. Step 2, they don't just raid. No, they set up a formal system to collect taxes from Roman citizens. And then step 3, all that money, all that wealth gets funneled through secure desert routes directly to Aksum. It was basically outsourced imperialism.
What this whole thing created was what can only be described as a zone of laundered sovereignty. It wasn't a clean border on a map, it was this murky gray area where Roman authority was just a facade. Underneath it all, Aksumite power was the real law of the land. Which, of course, raises the obvious question, right? I mean, come on, this is the Roman Empire. They've got legions. They've got centuries of experience dealing with so-called barbarians. So why did they just let a group of nomads occupy their cities and steal their tax revenue?
Well, the short answer is they couldn't. The Aksumites and their Blemmies proxies had set up this incredibly sophisticated strategic trap that completely paralyzed the Roman military. For Rome, a direct attack just wasn't a good option.
It all boiled down to what you could call a double hostage dilemma. See, if Rome attacked the Blemmies, Aksum could instantly cut off vital trade routes. This made the Blemmies the perfect, deniable buffer. So Aksum could keep up this friendly diplomatic relationship with Constantinople, all while its proxies were bleeding Roman Egypt dry. It was a total no-win scenario for the emperor.
Now, an operation this sophisticated, it needed more than just muscle. It needed a nerve center, right? An administrative headquarters that could operate legally inside Roman territory.
And they found their loophole at the ancient temple of Philae. The Blemmies basically forced Rome to grant them access, but they did it under the guise of pilgrimage. This cover story was perfect. It allowed Aksumite agents and Blemmies administrators to live and work on Roman land, turning Philae into the official laundry for all those Roman taxes.
What this created, effectively, was a state within a state, an Aksumite-controlled entity that was operating with total impunity right inside the borders of the Roman Empire.
Just look at this contrast between the official claim and the reality on the ground. On paper, sovereignty was Roman, but in reality, it was an Aksumite protectorate. Taxes were officially owed to Constantinople, but really, they went to Aksum. The military was supposed to be Roman legions. In reality, Blemmius cavalry held all the power. This was not a raid. This was a parallel government.
And this wasn't some fleeting arrangement that lasted a year or two. This audacious scheme, this shadow state, it operated successfully for about a century, 100 years. For 100 years, the gold of the Nile flowed south. Can you just imagine the sheer amount of wealth that was transferred over that time?
So how did this all finally end?
Well, it all kicked off around 350 CE with Aksum's rise, and for the next century, the Blemmyes protectorate just thrived. But by 540 CE, the Emperor Justinian had finally had enough. He realized this wasn't just some border issue. It was a strategic threat from a rival superpower. First, he shut down their headquarters at Philae. Then he made a really brilliant countermove.
And here is the crucial point. Justinian didn't send in the legions. He totally understood the game Aksum was playing, and he decided to beat them at it. He fought a proxy with a proxy. He funded and armed another group, the Nabadae, to do his fighting for him.
And you know what? Justinian's gambit paid off. Big time. His proxies, the Nabadae, they crushed the Blemmyes and drove them from the Nile. And that dried out Aksum's revenue stream completely. The century-long siphon was shut off, and the gold of the Nile finally flowed north again.
This whole story, it just reveals this hidden chapter of history, and it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other times have official maps hidden where the real power was? How many other hidden empires have used proxies and economic warfare to reshape the world from the shadows?